Good morning. Today we are reading Siddhartha is the spiritual journey of a boy who lived in India during the period of Buddha. The story is based in ancient Nepal where Siddhartha, the son of Brahmin, leaves his home with his friend Govinda in the search of enlightenment and with the aim of joining the ascetics. He undergoes a series of changes and realization and at last achieves enlightenment as a ferryman. Listen to the sounds of the river that goes long lasting peace and capture the essence of his journey. Siddhartha is Hermann Hesse's ninth novel and was written in German, simple yet powerful and lyrical style. It was written after he had spent time in India during in 1910. So it's covered in plastic. So I'll unbox it. Ah, hmm. Before I start, I actually bought this book because I watched a video of PewDiePie in which he has recommended like 12 books for 12 months. I think I'm not sure 10 or 12. So one of the book was Siddhartha and the other was Tao Teaching, and so I was interested in these two books, but for now I'll start with Siddhartha. Son of Brahmin with the Samans. The Roman Roland, my dear friend. Son of the Brahmin. In the shade of the house, in the sunshine of the river bank, near the boats, in the shade of the salwood forest, in the shade of the fig tree in where Siddhartha grew up, the handsome son of the Brahmin, the young falcon together with his friend Govinda, son of Brahmin. The sun tanned his light shoulders by the banks of the river. When bathing, performing the scared ablutions, the scared offerings, in the mango grove shade poured into his black eyes when playing as a boy, when his mother sang, when the sacred offerings were made, when his father, the scholar, taught him, when the wise men talked for a long time. Siddhartha had been partaking in the discussions of the wise men, practicing debate with Govinda, practicing with Govinda the art of reflection, the service of meditation. He already knew how to speak the Om silently, the word of words, to speak it silently into himself while inhaling, to speak it silently out of himself while exhaling, with all the concentration of his soul, the forehead surrounded by the glow of the clear thinking spirit. He already knew to feel Atman in the depths of his being. indestructible, one with the universe. Joy leaped in his father's heart for his son, who was quick to learn, thirsty for knowledge. He saw him growing up to become a great wise man and priest, a prince among the Brahmins. Bliss leaped when she saw when she saw him walking, when she saw him sit down and get up. Siddhartha, strong, handsome, he who was walking on slender legs, greeting her with perfect respect. Love touched the hearts of the Brahmins' young daughters when Siddhartha walked through the lanes of the town with the luminous forehead, with the eye of a king, with his slim hips. But more than all the others, he was loved by Govinda, his friend, son of Brahmin. He loved Siddhartha's eyes and sweet voice. He loved his walk and the perfect decency of his movements. He loved everything Siddhartha did and said, and what he loved most was his spirit, his transcendent very thoughts, his ardent will. Govinda knew he would not become a common Brahmin, not a lazy official in charge of offerings, not a greedy merchant with magic spells, not a vain, vacuous speaker, not a mean, deceitful priest, and also not a decent, stupid sheep in the herd of the many. No, and he, Govinda, as well, did not want to become one of those, not one of those tens of thousands of Brahmins. He wanted to follow Siddhartha, the beloved, the splendid, and in days to come, when Siddhartha would become a god, when he would join the glorious, then Govinda wanted to follow him as his friend, his companion, his servant, his spear carrier, his shadow. Siddhartha was thus loved by everyone. He was a source of joy for everybody. He was a delight for them all. But he, Siddhartha, was not a source of joy for himself. He found no delight in himself. Walking the rosy paths of the fig tree garden, sitting in the blue shade of the grove of contemplation, washing his limbs daily in the bath of repentance, sacrificing in the dim shade of the mango forest, his gestures of perfect decency, everyone's love and joy. He still lacked all joy in his heart. Dreams and restless thoughts came into his mind, flowing from the water of the river, sparkling from the stars of the night, melting from the beams of the sun. Dreams come to him, and restlessness of the soul, fuming from the sacrifices, breathing from forth from the verses of the Rig Veda, being infused into him drop by drop from the teachings of the old Brahmin. Siddhartha had started to nurse discontent in himself. He had started to feel that the love of his father and the love of his mother and also the love of his friend Govinda would not bring him joy for ever and ever, would not nurse him, feed him, satisfy him. He had started to suspect that his one venerable father and his other teachers that the wise Brahmins has already revealed to him, the most and best of their wisdom, that they had already filled his expecting vessel with their richness, and the vessel was not full, the spirit was not content, the soul was not calm, the heart was not satisfied, the ablutions were good, but they were water. But they were water. They did not wash off the sin. They did not heal the spirit's thirst. They did not relieve the fear in his heart. The sacrifices and the invocation of the gods were excellent, but was that all? Did the sacrifices give of happy fortune? And what about gods? Was it really Prajapati who had created the world? Was it not the Atman, he the only one, the singular one, where the gods not creations, created like me and you, subject to me, mortal? Was it there for good? Was it right? Was it meaningful and the highest occupation to make offerings to the gods? For whom else were offerings to be made? Who else was to be worshipped about him, the only one, the Atman? And where was Atman to be found but in one's own self, in its innermost part, in its indestructible part, which everyone had in himself? But where was this self, this innermost part, this ultimate part? It was not flesh and bone. It was neither thought nor consciousness. Thus the wisest one thought, so where was it? To reach this place, the self, myself, the Atman. There was another way which was worthwhile looking for, alas, and nobody showed this way. Nobody knew it, not the father, not the teachers and wise men, not the holy sacrificial songs. They knew everything. The Brahmins and their holy books, they knew everything. They had taken care of everything and more than everything, the creation of the world, the origin of speech, of food, of inhaling, of the exhaling, the arrangement of the senses, the acts of God. They knew infinitely much, but was it valuable to know all of this, not knowing that one and only thing, the most important thing, the solely important thing? Surely, many verses of the holy books, particularly in the Upanishads of Samveda, spoke of this innermost and ultimate thing. Wonderful verses. Your soul is the whole world was written there, and it was written that man in his deep sleep, would meet with his innermost part and would reside in the Atman. Marvelous wisdom was in these verses. All knowledge of the wisest ones had been collected here in magic words, pure as honey collected by bees. Not to be looked down upon was the tremendous amount of enlightenment which lay here collected and preserved by innumerable generations of wise Brahmins. But where were the Brahmins? Where the priests? Where the wise men of were the wise men or penitents who had succeeded in not just knowing the deepest of all knowledge but also to live it? Where was the knowledgeable one who wove his spell to bring his familiarity with the Atman out of the sleep into the state of being awake, into the life, into every step of the way, into word and deed? Siddhartha knew many vulnerable Brahmins, chiefly his father, the pure one, the scholar, the most vulnerable one. His father was to be admired, quiet and noble. Were his manners pure, his life lived behind his brow, but even he who knew so much, did he live in blissfulness? Did he have peace? Was he not also just a searching man, a thirsty man? Did he have peace? Was he not also just a searching man, a thirsty man? Did he not again and again have to drink from holy sources as a thirsty man, from the offerings, from the books, from the disputes of the Brahmins? Why did he, the irreproachable one, have to wash off sins every day, strive for a cleansing every day, over and over every day? Was not Atman in him? Did the pristine source spring from his heart? It had to be found, the pristine source, in one's own self. It had to be possessed. Everything else was searching, was a detour, was getting lost. Thus were Siddhartha's thoughts. This was his thirst, this was his suffering. Often he spoke to himself from the Chandogya Upanishad, the words, truly the name of Brahmin is Satyam. Verily, who knows such a thing will enter the heavenly world every day. Often it seemed near the heavenly world, but never had he reached it completely, never had he quenched the ultimate thirst. And among all the wise and wisest men he knew and whose instructions he had received, among all of them there was no one who had reached it completely, the heavenly world, who had quenched it completely, the eternal thirst. Govinda, Siddhartha spoke to his friends. Govinda, my dear, come with me under the banyan tree. Let's practice meditation. They went to the banyan tree. They sat down. Siddhartha right here. Govinda 20 paces away. While putting himself down, ready to speak the Om, Siddhartha replied, murmuring the verse. Om is the bow, the arrow is soul, the Brahman is the arrow's target. That one should incessantly hit. After the usual time of the exercise in meditation had passed, Govinda rose. The evening had come. It was time to perform the evening's ablution. He called Siddhartha's name. Siddhartha did not answer. Siddhartha sat there lost in thoughts. His eyes were rigidly focused towards a very distant target. The tip of his tongue was protruding a little between the teeth. He seemed not to breathe. Thus sat he, wrapped up in contemplation, thinking om his soul, sent after the Brahmins as an arrow. Once Samans had travelled through Siddhartha's town, ascetics, on a pilgrimage, three skinny, withered men, neither old nor young, with dusty and bloody shoulders, almost naked, scorched by the sun, surrounded by loneliness, strangers and enemies to the world, strangers and lank jackals in the realm of humans. Behind them blew a hot scent of quiet passion, of destructive service, of mal- merciless self-denial. In the evening, after the hour of contemplation, Siddhartha spoke to Govinda. Early tomorrow morning, my friend Siddhartha will go to the Samanas. He will become a Samana. Siddhartha will go to Samanas, he will become a Samana. Govinda turned Govinda turned pale when he heard these words and read the decision in the motionless face of his friends, unstoppable like the arrow shoot from the bow. Soon, and with the first glance, Govinda realized now it is beginning. Now Siddhartha is taking his own way. Now his faith is beginning to sprout, and with his my own. And he turned pale like a dry banana skin. Oh Siddhartha, he exclaimed, will your father permit you to do that? Siddhartha looked over as if he was just waking up. Arrow swift, he read Govinda's soul. Read the fear, read the submission. Oh Govinda, he spoke quietly. Let's not waste words. Tomorrow at daybreak, I will begin the life of Samanas. Speak no more of it. Saman. 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 Oh Govinda, he spoke quietly. Let's not waste words. Tomorrow at daybreak, I will begin the life of Saman. Speak no more of it. Siddhartha entered the chamber where his father was sitting on a mat of bast and stepped behind his father and remained standing there until his father felt that someone was standing behind him. Said the Brahmin, is that you, Siddhartha? Then say what you came to say. Answered Siddhartha, with your permission, my father, I came to tell you that it is my longing to leave your house tomorrow and go to ascetics. My desire is to become Saman. May my father not oppose this. The Brahmin fell silent and remained silent for a long that the stars in the small window wondered and changed their relative position before the silence was broken. Silent and motionless stood the sun with his arms folded, silent and motionless sat the father on the mat, and the stars traced their path in the sky. Then spoke the father, it is not proper for a Brahmin to speak harsh and angry words, but there is displeasure in my heart. I do not wish to hear their request from you mouth a second time. Slowly the Brahman rose. Siddhartha stood silently, his arms folded. What are you waiting for? Asked the father. Answered Siddhartha. You know what? Indignant. The father left the chamber. Indignant. He went to his bed and lay down. Slowly the Brahman, after an hour, since sleep would not come, the Brahman stood up, paced to and fro, and left the house. Through the small window of the chamber, he looked back inside and he saw Siddhartha standing there, his arms folded, not moving from his spot, his robe shimmering pale, with anxiety in his heart. The father returned to his bed. After another hour, since sleep would not come, the Brahman stood up again, paced to and fro, walked out of the house, and saw that the moon had risen. Through the window of the chamber, he looked back inside. There stood Siddhartha, not moving from his spot, his arms folded, moonlight reflecting from his bare sins. With a troubled heart, the father went back to bed, and he came back after 1 hour. He came back again after 2 hours, looked through the small window, and he saw Siddhartha standing in the moonlight by the lights of the stars in the darkness, and he came back hour later, hour silently. He looked in the chamber, saw him standing in the same place, filled his heart with anger, filled his heart with unrest, filled his heart with anguish, filled with it with sadness. And in the night last hour, before the day began, he returned, stepped into the room, saw the young man standing there who seemed tall and like a stranger to him. Siddhartha, he spoke, what are you waiting for? You know what? Will you always stand the way and wait until it becomes morning, noon, and evening? I will stand and wait. You will become tired, Siddhartha. I will become tired. You will fall asleep, Siddhartha. I will not fall asleep. You will die, Siddhartha. I will die. And would you rather die than obey your father? Siddhartha always obeys his father. So will you abandon your plan? Siddhartha will do what his father will tell him to do. The first light of day glanced into the room. The Brahmin saw that Siddhartha's knees were trembling softly, but in Siddhartha's face he saw no trembling. His eyes were fixed on a distant spot. Then his father realized that Siddhartha no longer dwelt with him in his home. He had already left him. The father touched Siddhartha's shoulder. You will, he said, go into the forest and be a samana. When you have found blissfulness in the forest, come back and teach me to be blissful. If you find disappointment, then return and let us once again make offerings to the gods together. Go now and kiss your mother. Tell her where you are going to. But for me, it is a time to go to the river and to perform the first ablution. He took his hand from his son's shoulder and went outside. Siddhartha swayed as he tried to walk. He controlled himself, bowed to his father, and went to his mother to do as his father had said. As slowly his legs stiff, he left the still quiet town in the first light of day. A shadow from near the last hut rose and joined the pilgrim Govinda. You have come, said Siddhartha and smiled. I have come, said Govinda. The Saman. On the evening of this day, they caught up with the ascetics, the skinny Samans, and offered them their companionship and obedience. They were accepted. Siddhartha gave his garments to the poor Brahmin in the street. He wore nothing more than the lion cloth and the earth-colored, unseen cloak. He ate only once a day and never anything cooked. He fasted for 15 days. He fasted for 28 days. Then flesh went from his thighs and cheeks. Feverish dreams flickered from his enlarged eyes. Long nails grew slowly in his parched fingers, and a dry, shaggy beard grew on his chin. His glance turned icy when he encountered women. His mouth twitched with contempt when he walked through a city of nicely dressed people. He saw merchants trading, princes hunting, and monks wailing for their deed, wars offering themselves, physicians physicians trying to help the sick, priests determining the most suitable day for seeding, lovers loving, mothers nursing their child, and all of this was not worthy of one look from his eye. It all lied, it all stank, and all stank of lies. It all pretended to be meaningful and joyful and beautiful, and it all was just concealed to the word tasted bitter. Life was torture. A goal stood before Siddhartha, a single goal to become empty, empty of thirst, empty of wishing, empty of dreams, empty of joy and sorrow. Dead to himself, not to be a self anymore, to find tranquility with an emptied heart, to be open to miracles in unself thoughts. That was his goal. Once all of myself was overcome and had died, once every desire and every urge was silent in the heart, then the ultimate part of me had to awake, the innermost of my being, which is no longer myself, the great secret. Silently, Siddhartha exposed himself to the burning rays of the sun directly above, glowing with pain, glowing with thirst, and stood there until he neither felt any pain nor thirst anymore. Silently, he stood there in the rainy season. From his hair, the water dripped over freezing shoulders, over freezing hips and legs, and the penitent stood there until he could not feel the chill in his shoulder.